Yemen is a desert country in the Middle East at the southern tip of the Arabian Peninsula. For about 8 years, the country has been going through a series of changes to its climate that have been affecting the country's geography, citizens, and natural resources. The country has been experiencing a mix of numerous unexpected rainfall, leading to huge floods. The flooding rainfall has destroyed many properties, including towns and infrastructure, such as roads and bridges. The series of rainfall and droughts leaves citizens of Yemen with water shortages as large amounts of fresh water are being contaminated from the floods. The flooding has reached pipes and wells in cities that make the water undrinkable for millions of Yemenis. Diseases also come from this unexpected flooding, causing the cholera epidemic. Facing the worst cholera epidemic in today's modern times, there have been more than 1 million cholera cases and 3,000 presumably deaths. Searching for fresh water has become the biggest struggle in Yemen. The high demand has led to Yemenis looking towards the ground for their water. As millions are in need, this resulted in Yemen's groundwater becoming alarmingly close to depletion. The flooding has become so bad that it also causes casualties, with about 77 people killed from the flooding. Searching for fresh water is the biggest struggle. The high demand has led to Yemenis looking toward the ground for their water. With the numerous amounts of people in need, Yemen's groundwater is alarmingly close to depletion. In this anomaly of Yemen's groundwater, we can see in the early 2000s, before the war and the climate changes began affecting the country, that their groundwater was above average. In the more recent years of 2014, the conflict escalated into a civil war and a series of climate changes devastated the country. We can see a massive decline in Yemen's groundwater in the past couple of years, and it only seems to be getting worse. With Yemen's humanitarian crisis still in effect and its fast-growing population, the demand for water will only get higher, and there won't be enough water for everybody. Food shortages have also become another problem in the country. Due to Yemen's geographical zone, the country has had already struggled with agriculture, with their soil being mostly sand. This problem, with the mix of its climate changes, of floods and droughts, had destroyed mostly all farms that were capable of producing crops, which was for sustainable agriculture. Without sustainable agriculture, they are not able to produce any livestock, resulting in a scarcity of meat and the price of food to skyrocket. With the production of food declining, the price of food has become more than double the average family can afford, leaving only the financially well to be able to eat. With 55% of Yemen's population in poverty and 18% in severe poverty, more than half of the population is left starving. Millions of Yemenis are not able to afford the rising in food prices and have turned to scraps for their next meal. The flooding has led to outages and the destruction of many businesses and markets, leaving many unemployed and not financially able to support their families. With all of these factors and unfortunate events playing a problem in Yemen's humanitarian crisis, the percentage of being healthy in Yemen is slim to none. With a population of around 28 million, 22 million are in need of some assistance, which is 78% of the population. 57% lack access to drinking water, 56% are starving, 17% are in emergency level famine, 4.5% have suspected cholera cases, and 10% of Yemenis have gone missing or were forced out of their homes. Another factor in Yemen's climate change is the cultivation of khat, which is our narcotic plant. Chewing khat is Yemen's version of za and used to be an occasional pastime for the rich, but has become a daily habit for about 90% of the population, including men, women, and children as young as 12 getting zooted. This surge in demand is most likely because Yemenis need a way to cope with the conditions of their lives. Because khat is so lucrative, farmers have decreased food production in favor for khat. It is estimated that only 2.3% of Yemen's land is suitable for agriculture, and an increasing proportion of it is taken up by khat. This worsens food shortages and also contributes to the water scarcity, as khat requires a huge amount of water to grow. It is estimated that it needs 5 times more water than grapes, making it an environmentally unsustainable crop. The country of Yemen is also experiencing a civil war, worsening its climate crisis. The two sides at war are the Yemeni government and the Houthi movement, and have been fighting since 2015. The Houthis have controlled the cities of Sana'a and Hodeidah, which happen to be the two largest and most populated cities in Yemen. Iran is known to support the Houthis and their movement in the rebellion, and Saudi Arabia has been supplying the Yemen government. With other neighboring countries being involved, the more casualties and longer the war will go on for, as the effects of the long-torn civil war threatens Yemen as a habitable land. If the natural disasters and destruction of the war continue for a decade, Yemen's land will be permanently damaged. With important infrastructure being destroyed, contaminating the air and water, Yemen will become uninhabitable, forcing its people to flee to other countries. Due to the struggle for resources on both sides, the military takes a lot of the necessities for themselves, leaving little for the people in need. Blockades and import restrictions cause fuel shortages, which in turn leave equipment in homes, markets, and hospitals completely useless. In response, there has been increased deforestation as people must rely on firewood for fuel. High levels of carbon dioxide is also caused by Yemen's oil production. The Middle Eastern country's extraction and burning of oil contributes to climate change, releasing pollution into the air. With the floods destroying many buildings, the burning of fossil fuels is needed at an all-time high to be able to back up these businesses, hospitals, and homes. The demand for oil is also at an all-time high due to the war. Oil is used to power many military equipment, further contributing to the high CO2 emissions in the air. In response, there has been an increased deforestation as people must rely on firewood for fuel. Thousands of trees are being cut down, meaning there will be less trees available to clean the air, making the country more vulnerable to higher levels of carbon dioxide. This graph shows Yemen's drastic increase in CO2 emissions in the last decade. We can see that before Yemen's humanitarian crisis occurred, the CO2 emission levels were normal until Yemen was hit with the devastating changes to its climate. Yemen's CO2 levels will not be going down anytime soon, as post-war reconstruction would only continue to release significant amounts of emissions into the air. Yemen institutions must enforce the country's exclusive maritime economic zone to allow fishery stocks to recover, which would then allow them to be sustainably harvested. This would then help the food shortages that are happening in Yemen. To prevent higher CO2 levels, hydrocarbon extraction must be managed effectively in order to protect both people and the natural environment from the dangers of oil extraction. Due to crippling fluctuations in the diesel market for everyday power, Yemen has turned towards solar energy. Markets for solar energy began to boom to meet the basic needs of everyday households, but is also spreading to health, businesses, education, and agriculture. Yemen's agriculture is heavily dependent on diesel for groundwater extraction, but solar power has the potential to break this cycle. International agencies have invested in Yemen's solar power, and amidst the war, the government is tendering for a vast majority of projects to invest in energy conservation. Private sectors are also supporting the deployment of this life-saving technology for the Yemeni people, so we will see more solar energy farms being built in Yemen in the near future. As for agriculture, some farmers in Yemen have found a solution past Yemen's difficult soil and turned to hydroponic farming. Hydroponic farming is a type of horticulture that involves growing plants, usually crops or medicinal plants, without soil by using water-based mineral nutrient solutions and aqueous solvents. Many small farmers have adopted this way of farming to address the country's water scarcity problem. The growing crops rely on 90% less water than traditional farms, and also being able to double the production than using a regular soil system. Hydroponic cultivation is slowly taking over farmers in Yemen as more and more have turned to this way of agriculture to grow crops. Another possible solution was created by Nada al-Mashdali, a Yemeni woman who participated in the United Nations 7th Youth Leadership Program. While she was in the program, she developed ideas for a food waste recycling project that produces biogas and organic fertilizer. To make production more efficient, she created a device that monitors temperature and gas pressure density, which can be checked on a mobile app. Biogas is a form of clean energy which will help reduce carbon emissions and provide an alternative to dwindling fossil fuels. Organic fertilizer will also help with agriculture. By optimizing production of these valuable resources, al-Mashdali's efforts can bring Yemen closer to its sustainable development goals. Overall, Yemen is facing the worst humanitarian crisis the world has ever seen, and with the two sides still at war, things don't seem to be getting better anytime soon. Efforts here and there are being made to adapt to climate change, but the destruction of war seems to outweigh the positives. Yemen's government is distracted fighting a war instead of looking for solutions for their country and its citizens, This forces no other choice but for Yemenis to suffer or flee to neighboring countries for a better life.